We got a very packed show today. The Chicago Bulls continue to talk about copying the blueprint of the Indiana Pacers, but more importantly than that, I want to talk about the free fall that the Chicago Bulls are in. What are some realistic ways and avenues they can use to get out of that free fall? Plus, there's talk about trade targets around. We're going to talk about trade targets the Bulls can look at other than Anthony Davis. And Giannis is just a fantasy, and I need some Chicago Bulls fans to wake up from the trap. We're going to talk about all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And let's just be frank here. The Chicago Bulls are in an absolute dilemma. Now, it's still more than enough time in the season where the Bulls could realistically turn it around, but it has left a lot of Bulls fans to ask and talk about this from this perspective and point of view. What is the Bulls' realistic path forward? And for many Bulls fans, they do believe that the only path forward is a rebuild. 9-12 in the season isn't a complete disaster. I want to be clear there. It's not the end-all be-all, right? Now, one of your better players in Kobe White has barely played. One of your key backups in Zach Collins has barely played. And you've been missing at least 1 to 2 serious parts of your rotation at every part this season. But the thing that makes this even more concerning about the Bulls is the lack of effort that we continue to see from this team. The team is now on their second 5-game losing streak of the season. And it's bad, right? They're not that far above Charlotte with 6 wins, Brooklyn with now 5 wins. They aren't that much above those teams. And therefore, people who see this only solution here being a full rebuild, I get it. And I can understand it. I don't agree, right? And that's just not something I agree with. I think when you have players that do have, it'd be different if we had players that had $40+ million salaries, multiple of those guys. The Bulls don't have that. They have one player above $20 million. That's Josh Giddey, right? Now that could become 2 with Kobe White in this offseason, but that's still, it's not even like Kobe's reportedly looking for the full max. He's looking for reportedly a $30 million contract. And honestly, with the injuries that he's had here, that could actually take a hit, right? And the Bulls could either, work in some injury provisions or something into there. So I'm not at the place where I think a full rebuild. As a matter of fact, I think if you're looking at this team, right, players that I would absolutely keep on this roster as things stand right now are Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. I would keep those players. Those are all the players that I would keep for sure. Of course, Modest Buzelis. Let me not forget to mention Modest before the Modest fans, right, flip out. But I think when you look at it, like Kevin Huerter, Nikola Vucevic, Zach Collins, Jalen Smith, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, all these guys that else there. Not to say that some of those guys can't stay around, but the Bulls do need to make a serious decision on, that evaluation of long-term fit that we heard about at the beginning of the season, that evaluation of trying to look to see what players are going to stick around for fit, desire, all those type of things, right? So, again, Josh Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, Modest Buzelis, and Noa Essengue, just because I do still think there's a lot of promise in Noa Essengue. I know Bulls fans were seeing Derek Queen, and some people started making even wild comparisons to Patrick Williams and stuff like that. I get where some of that is coming from, and the concern and frustration from some Bulls fans when it comes to all of that. I understand that. But my mindset on it, again, is I'm not at that place, right? I think that you have a lot of these guys that you can look at it and try to discover what you're going to get with that, right? But I think overall that you have to start the one thing that, a couple of things that have held this Bulls team back, right, is that every player that we've drafted under AK and Eversley have been a project. Every single one of them, right? And there is something to be said about, there are some uncovered gems. You look at, for example, Oklahoma City, right? Look at the number of gems that they've had. Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort, right? They had some of those guys that really kind of developed, especially over the course of their championship run and even some before that, right? And the Bulls haven't necessarily had that. Of course, Modest is a player that a lot of Bulls fans are excited about. He's in, I would say, a version of a sophomore slump. It's not like he's worse than last year, but he definitely hasn't taken that leap that a lot of people had hoped to see from him in this second year, right? The Bulls, as it stands right now, they have nothing to lose. right? They have nothing to lose. And so at this point, it is the time for this front office to be aggressive. It is time now for this front office to really take a look at what they want to be and who they want to be and who they want to build around with this team and find a path going forward. That is up to this team to find that. And I just don't know if the Bulls have, how they view these players and if they're ready to ask themselves those tough decisions. The Bulls' last 5 opponents, the 5 opponents that we've lost the 5 straight games to, are 31 and 78. 31 and 70, 31 and 70 fucking 8. That's where it is right now. And this Bulls team continually can't cross, getting a win in that. And so that's what this team is going to really have to fall down to. Now, we heard a couple of days ago that they want to follow the Pacers blueprint, which again, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad blueprint to replicate, right? I think that they are trying to emulate that. Billy Donovan, for what it's worth, said this exactly. That's who we have to be. We have to be better than the sum of our parts. Everybody sees Indiana's play, and the thing that everybody goes to write is, oh, their pace, their pace, their pace. And it's not just about the pace. It's about the fact that they were constructed and built well as a team when they went on that championship run. Now, they lost Miles Turner. They're going to have to figure some stuff out when Tyrese Halliburton gets back, but it's great there. But you still need to pair Josh Giddey with. Josh Giddey is an all-star this year. The numbers are there. You saw last night's game against Brooklyn. He was one of the first players that were frustrated as hell by the performance of his team. That tells me a lot about Josh Giddey, right? But when you look at it as well, like when you look at the Pacers and how they were able to find Pascal Siakam, they had a guy like Miles Turner who was there in their organization. When they moved on from, Domantas Sabonis to get the player that they got in there, it was huge, right? All those type of things were major for the team as far as finding their path to get there. But they weren't ever a team that just sat on their hands. They were either aggressive or they were calculated. And as things stand right now, do we feel that we see calculation from AK and Eversley? Do we feel like we see that, or even there's patience, but there's patience in the wrong place at sometimes from this front office, right? A Bulls source said this. They have Halliburton, who is an all-star, and they have Siakam. If Giddey can develop into an all-star and be what Hallie was, when do we pull the trigger to get our Siakam, right? That's something that started a lot. Now, of course, the Bulls are hoping Modest or maybe Noa Essengue develop into that. But at the same time, there's something to be said about the level of aggression that's needed to make sure you go out and get that guy. And then you could still have, even with that, they went out and got Siakam, but they still have players like Nembhard, right? They still have players like Neesmith. They still have players like Benedict Mathurin, who, of course, grew and developed over that time as well. Now, I would say this. If somebody in the Bulls organization, which that quote is sourced from per ESPN, that would mean that, do they not view Kobe White as that? Then what does that say about Kobe White and the potential of Kobe White's future, right? What does it say about all of that? That's what it comes down to, right? Like, Siakam isn't a superstar caliber player, but the impact that he had on that Pacers team has been huge. This Bulls team needs to find impact players that are going to impact winning. I said it in the last 2 live streams after games. The Bulls have to have people in the organization that care more about winning than anything else, care more about winning than loyalty sometimes. They care more about winning than looking stupid sometimes. They have to have those players that do that, or people in the organization that control things, to be able to care more about winning than anything else. And we haven't had that. We've had AK so far, wants to be the smartest person in the room. I do think he was aggressive about going out there and getting DeMar and Lonzo and those guys, right? And that was great. But that team was built on very fragile ground, right? Then you pivot that. You go out and get Josh Giddey. You take advantage of moving Alex Caruso. You get Josh Giddey, who the basketball world was down on. And for what it's worth, not saying that Josh Giddey's perfect, but look at how he's performing. He's performing great as far as the numbers wise. Needs to get those turnovers under gear, but he's been basically everything that you could have hoped Josh Giddey to be. He's grown as an off-ball scorer. He's grown as an on-ball defender when you look at those numbers. But still to this day, right? And still when it all comes down to this, the Bulls are 9-12 on the season. 9-12 on the season. So the Bulls have to start looking at moves, and they have to start trying to be aggressive. There are players that are clearly not going to be on this roster for a long time, whether it's their own doing. Let's say Nikola Vucevic wants to go, Kevin Huerter wants to join a winning team, whatever that is. Versus that, you have to take advantage and try to strike on then getting something in here that actually helps you winning now and in the future. Be aggressive. And that's what this trade deadline needs to show for the Chicago Bulls, a level of aggression about going out there and trying to solve some of these woes and problems that have been on your team for quite a while. And, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the trade rumors coming up here soon, but you can't say that you want to emulate the results of winning teams, whether it be OKC, whether it be the Oklahoma City Thunder, whether it be the Detroit Pistons, looking at what the Detroit Pistons did, because they did it in another different way. It has to be an amalgamation of where your current situation is, what your assets in, and then how aggressive you can realistically be, right? And the funny thing about mentioning all those teams, guess what? For everybody that wants to go to, oh my God, the Bulls don't pay the luxury tax. None of those teams that I just mentioned pay the luxury tax. So again, the luxury tax is not this thing that you have to pay to be a winning team. So I say that all to say this. This is an area where AK and Eversley really need to make their money. They really need to show, what do you want this team to be? What do you want this franchise to be? This franchise is representative of you, and that's AK, Eversley, and Billy Donovan. Regardless of who and how the balance of responsibility works out, that is who it's a responsibility of. And the Reinsdorfs as well. And something has to give if you guys really do want this team to be this winning franchise that you've talked about so glowingly about. Let's see it. Let's see the results, because right now, the only results that we see are cheapness, laziness, and a lack of effort by the players that are on the court for you. And that just, I'm sorry, to be frank, that ain't going to cut it. So let's see what this Bulls team can do, man. But to say all that, to round back, the people that say that there's only one way out of this, and that's a full blow up and rebuild, I disagree with how young this roster is. It'd be different. Like, it was different when it was Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, all players over 30, right? That was your core. This is a team that is the youngest team in the NBA, the second youngest team in the NBA, minus Nikola Vucevic. So, no, you don't have to blow it all up when you're already that young, but you do have to be strategic in what your next moves are to help solidify this. And let's hope that the Bulls team, you see it. I'm not even in Bulls gear. I think this is only the second or third time in the history of this show I don't have on Bulls gear. But that's just what it is. I can't continue to rock with something as hard when y'all are being lazy, because I'm not being lazy in the way that I cover this team. Go out there and figure it out. Now, with that said, I want to do a roundup, right? So there have been a lot of trade targets that have been mentioned for the Chicago Bulls. Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo have been two of the most recent ones, right? We've talked a lot about the Anthony Davis thing, the fact of if you can get it for the expirings that we just talked about. Like I just talked about the fact, if you don't see Zach Collins, Nikola Vucevic, and Kevin Huerter all being part of your future, move them for something that could be, right? And I'm not mad if the Bulls give up a future first, Nikola Vucevic and Kevin Huerter with you probably need to put another one in there as filler. If you keep Zach Collins and then you have Zach Collins as your starting center, AD as the 4, you move Miles Buzelis to the 3, I'm not necessarily mad at that. Right now, I don't think that that's feasible. I think if the Mavericks are going to move Anthony Davis, they probably can get better picks than what the Bulls can offer. You have some playoff teams that are going to have some lottery picks from draft picks that aren't their own. The Bulls only have their own pick other than the Portland pick, which is lottery protected. So I just don't know how feasible that is. Recently, the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors popped up in regards to the Bulls trying to make a move for Giannis, right? But again, I think that when you look at it as this one, right? No reputable source. There was that tweet that came out that the Bulls would be willing to put in the full court press and go all in on a potential trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo if the Milwaukee Bucks truly do make him available. I heard that, right? But the fact of the matter is this: I don't think the Bulls have the assets without completely gutting this team. And then we've already seen Giannis, when you don't have what's necessary, the framework around him for him to win at the level that he needs to win at. Yeah, he can get you close to 50 wins. They don't get out the first round either. Like, he hasn't been out the first round since they won a title, right? So, yes, Giannis is a star. Make no mistake about that. He is a star, but he still needs structure. And if the Bulls give up so much of what they've built here with depth to get Giannis, I just question, all right, what is it going to be? And people confuse all the time. You hear that a player could want to trade, and a lot of people automatically think, oh, that means we can get him cheap. The Milwaukee Bucks aren't stupid. Like, the Milwaukee Bucks realize they have to draft a star because they have never been a free agent destination. So why all of a sudden are they going to trade him for low? No, they're going to want a ton of draft assets back so that they can start their rebuild clearly. Now, if they do move on from Giannis, they're going to start a full rebuild of that roster, and they're going to get a lot of stuff back, right? But I do think the Bulls, even if they were to trade for Giannis, they'd still be missing three-point shooting. They still would be missing rim protection and on-ball creation, all things that Giannis needs to make it past the first round in the playoffs. The Bulls will still be lacking that, right? Giannis nor the Bulls, over their history, have been huge free agent draws. They just haven't been that. So I don't think that if Giannis comes to the Chicago Bulls, all of a sudden you're going to get and garner a bunch of free agents to come here for cheap either. So, we'll see what happens there. I understand it. I know a lot of people are looking at this. Yes, Giannis is an absolute star. I just don't know if it's going to actually work out that way if they were to make that trade for Giannis, right? So So what are some of the other names that are available? Domantas Sabonis, who we talked about, is a player that, Jake Fisher mentioned that Nikola Vucevic's deal is team friendly, which could open the door to a Sabonis trade. That comes from Jake Fisher, which, okay, let's say that the Kings see Vooch's expiring contract. They can get off Sabonis, and they also are going full rebuild. So let's say they take Vooch as an expiring and some first. Okay, cool. But Sabonis doesn't offer rim protection. He doesn't offer the defense either. He's better than Nikola Vucevic, but he's a very similar player as far as his limitations, which will still keep the Chicago Bulls in the same limitations that they have. Now, he is an elite rebounder. He's really good as a playmaker, and his interior scoring is really good, right? So that could make him an intriguing option offensively. And the Bulls could then double down on the offensive aspect while still missing some of the defense. That's what Sabonis could bring to this team. But again, because it lacks some of the defense, I don't know how much that feasibly does work for the Chicago Bulls in reality, but he is a name that's out there. Next up, Julius Randle, right? Julius Randle has been playing his best basketball literally since the playoffs last year. He's been the Timberwolves' best player until Anthony Edwards has woken up here recently, averaging 22 points, 7.4 rebounds, 6 assists per game as well, while averaging 49.8% from the field. That's what he's shooting right now. And he showed up, and he's shown that he can be better than what he was looked at times in his career. And he is a really good on-ball creator as well, which would play into some of the off-ball things if we can consistently get off-ball movement from this team. But one could be made that would the Timberwolves really be willing to give up Julius Randle for something that the Bulls have in their roster? Like, we know that they need a point guard, but I don't see the Timberwolves giving up Julius Randle for that. I think they're going to more so be looking to give up some other things, and, we'll see. The question then becomes about, like, does Julius Randle fit in the fast-paced offense? I think that he can. But again, some of the defense questions are still going to be there, even with Julius Randle, which the Bulls would have to figure out, right? All right, next up, Jaren Jackson Jr. This is the youngest player that has been mentioned as far as a player that could be available. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies reportedly would rather build around Jaren Jackson Jr., going forward if they do decide to move on from Ja. So there's some questions about his legitimate availability, right? But they're 9-13 on the season. There's been a lot of reports of them potentially blowing it up. But I see JJJ staying with Memphis, even if they do trade Ja Morant because of his youth and how young he is. Now, he is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but he's also not a great rebounder. He also can't stay out of foul trouble. But for those that love him, it has not stopped him from winning Defensive Player of the Year. And the Bulls do lack defense. And the question then becomes about moving him moving Modest to the 3, having JJJ at the 4, because again, he's another player like AD that doesn't like to play the 5. And so could that be there? And he could be a lob threat with Josh Giddey as well that you can't deny, right? Those are kind of some of the other ones. Now, of course, you got other players that have been mentioned, like Trey Murphy III, who I personally think is one of the perfect potential acquisitions by the Chicago Bulls team. Now, it doesn't do anything for the big man. It doesn't do anything for that depth, but it does offer something that this Bulls team does sorely need, as far as another player that can play on-ball defense. He can also is no threat offensively, like Isaac Okoro. Teams can completely forget him to guard him, right, and not hurt them too much. He brings the defense, and also you can't leave him offensively either on ball or off ball. He's that damn good. I would love him in a Bulls uniform. But those are kind of some of the options that are out there. Of course, the Bulls could still trade for like a Walker Kessler so that they don't have to go through free agency. They'll hold his rights, but he's not going to play this season for you, which, would definitely frustrate some Bulls fans trading for a player that we know we're not going to see until early next year, even though his injury is the type of injury you recover 100% from. So there's that part of it. But overall, I just think that this is a place where the Bulls are right now, where there are some candidates out there. Do the Bulls want to get aggressive about going out there and getting some of those guys is the only question that I have there. And that's the one that I really don't know with AK if he'd be willing to do. But I guess we shall see what's going to happen here with this Bulls team at the trade deadline. But one thing is certain, there are going to be a lot of players that are reportedly available at the trade deadline. The question just becomes then about, do the Bulls go out there and get one of those guys? And I guess we'll see, right? Now, I did do an emergency episode on this on the YouTube channel. I didn't talk about this on the podcast. Noa Essengue is out for the rest of the season with a shoulder injury. We know that he had a shoulder contusion. Ends up he needs surgery on that. And so he didn't get to show much, right? Of course, he played, I think in 2 games. He played a total of like 4 minutes over those 2 games. Now, he did get to play more games in the G League where he actually looked pretty damn good. And he actually showed himself to be somebody that can actually, it has the skill set that the Bulls drafted him for. In the G League, he averaged 23 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1 steals as well, and shot 1.3 threes per game. This is a guy that did everything that you're looking for from him in the G League. The question becomes about, what can he do at the NBA level? Now, unfortunately, we won't find that out this season. He's going to be out for the remainder of the season. And now it becomes about, it's a 5 to 6 month recovery per Billy Donovan, but that gives him a jump start on the offseason. And we know that Noa Essengue needs to continue to put on weight for this team. And now gives Noah kind of the thing to work with the trainers and those type of things to really get himself together. And we'll see, right? Like, of course, the hope is that Noa Essengue is ready to play consistent minutes next year. And, this shouldn't set that back. We've seen it with the Thunder. Like, there have been rookies that have lost their rookie year that still come out. And the type of injury that he has, you make 100% recovery from. So whatever the potential of Noa Essengue is, that potential is not impacted by this injury. It just becomes about how do you use this now to get to a better place. And I guess we'll see what that holds out for Noa Essengue. It's definitely unfortunate that we're losing him for the entirety of the season. But that's it for today's episode, guys, man. Make sure you guys, it's a lot of chaos going on right now with the Bulls. Hopefully they find their path and their direction back. And like I said, the season isn't over with yet. They can still very well turn the season around to a degree. Will they? I guess we'll see, right? But if you guys enjoyed the content today, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe as well, share your thoughts down below. I always want to hear from you guys as well, because we always got something to say. But I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up. But no, that's the wrong show, because I'm focused on the Bears now. Stay safe out there. See red if you can, y'all. And always, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.